When I received a message from Edward, I was accompanying my cousin from my hometown to check into a hotel. He asked me, "What are you doing?" The moment I saw the message, my heart skipped a beat. I still remembered a bodyguard who was fired by Edward just because he sneaked out for a cigarette during work hours. Although I no longer had to serve him directly, my working hours were still from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. If he found out that I was wandering outside during work hours without asking for leave, he would definitely fire me too. I hesitated for a few seconds, thinking about how to reply, but then his messages came like a storm. "Jason, what are you doing? Why aren't you replying? Jason, tell me, what are you doing? Jason, answer me. Jason, Jason." I glanced at the time. It was 4 p.m., and Edward hadn't gotten off work yet, so I quickly replied, "Young master, I was watering the flowers on the balcony. I didn't have my phone with me. Is there anything you need?" But after a long while, there was no reply. At that moment, my cousin said, "Brother, I've registered the room. Let's go eat now." I put away my phone and nodded. "Okay." At the restaurant, I hadn't even warmed my seat when Aunt Mary, the housekeeper, called me and urged me to come back immediately. She said, "Young master had a breakup." Broke up? Since when did Edward even have someone he liked? How did I not know? When I rushed back, I asked Aunt Mary, "What's going on?" She shook her head. "I don't know the details, but young master came home looking very upset. He asked me what he should do if the person he liked already liked someone else. So I guessed young master must have had a breakup." I looked at Edward. His expression was indeed very bad. In those CEO novels, the domineering presidents either had stomach problems or terrible tempers. It was like a standard setting. Edward was no exception. His stomach was just as bad as his temper. And the last thing he hated was being disturbed when he was in an emo mood. His previous butler had told him not to emo while he was down, and that got him fired. Aunt Mary, afraid of losing her job, had no choice but to call me back. I was dumbfounded. Aunt Mary then said she had to go grocery shopping, and quickly escaped. I stood there, feeling a little lost, until I saw Edward gulp down almost an entire bottle of red wine in one go. I couldn't hold back anymore. I mustered my courage and said, "Young master, please stop drinking. Let me help you back to your room to rest." What I was doing at that moment could definitely be called seeking death. But Edward paid me 88,000 yuan a month, provided food and lodging, covered 2 types of insurance and 5 kinds of benefits, and gave out big bonuses during every holiday, never less than 10,000 yuan each. So, for the sake of my long-term meal ticket, I had no choice but to do this. With his fragile stomach, I was worried he might collapse the very next second. If that happened, my quality of life would take a nosedive. I was already used to living the good life. Just imagining going back to a bitter life scared me. I shivered at the thought. Snatching the wine bottle from Edward's hand, I said, "Young master, please stop drinking. Let me help you back to your room." I was fully prepared to be cursed out, but to my surprise, he didn't even spare me a glance. That made me wonder if he hadn't even heard me. So, I repeated, "Young master, let me help you back to your room." This time, he finally reacted. He lifted his eyes to glance at me, but still didn't say a word. When I saw him raise the bottle again and take another sip, I sighed. This man really never learned from his pain. Who was the one who once clutched his stomach in agony, crying in my arms all night, while I massaged him nonstop? Who was the one who couldn't walk from stomach pain, so I carried him home and comforted him the whole night? It was you, Edward. You're 25 years old already. Can't you grow up a little? I'm your butler, not your father. You're really exhausting me. Edward staggered to his feet. Instinctively, I reached out to support him, but he avoided me. That pissed me off. But he was the boss. I couldn't hit him, couldn't curse him. Taking a deep breath, I forced my anger down and put on a smile. "Young master, too much alcohol is harmful." Then suddenly, a loud crash sounded behind me. I turned around and saw Edward standing on a chair, reaching for the bottle of red wine on the highest shelf of the cabinet. But he didn't manage to grab it. His body swayed, and he was about to fall. I remembered once when Edward took me on a business trip. We encountered a robber, and the bodyguard's misjudgment almost got Edward hurt. Edward scolded the bodyguard until he was in tears, then fired him. I didn't get away unscathed either. I got my head cracked open and broke a rib trying to protect Edward. If I just stood by and watched him fall off that chair now, I'd be dead meat. In a flash, I slid across the floor and caught him just in time. Maybe he hadn't expected me to catch him, because the way Edward looked at me changed. He patted my chest. But why pat? Why did he also give it a squeeze? In my 28 years of life, no one had ever groped my chest before. A powerful wave of strangeness shot straight up my spine. And Edward wasn't done. After grabbing one side, he went on to grope the other. And he didn't stop. My whole body stiffened. I didn't dare move an inch. He said, "Your pecs are huge. You must work out a lot." Huh? Our eyes met, and I felt my cheeks burning. Forcing a strained smile, I ground my teeth and said, "Not too much, but I do train." After getting hurt protecting Edward, I realized I was too weak. Even though I was 1.8 meters tall, I was skinny, and during that robbery, a thief my height had tossed me aside like I weighed nothing. Since then, I had gone to the gym whenever I had free time, never skipping a day in 5 years. Edward needed again. Great physique. Then he asked, "Do you have abs too?" I nodded. Yes. I was on the verge of breaking down. Even drunk, Edward was still as troublesome as ever. He insisted on touching my abs. When I refused, he pouted and glared at me angrily. Helpless, I rubbed my forehead. For God's sake, he was a high-class CEO, a man of status. How did he become like this after drinking? To make it worse, he threatened, "If you don't let me touch, I'll fire you." Well, if you put it that way. I lifted my shirt, grabbed his hand, pressed it to my abs, and gave him a fawning smile. "Young master, please touch as long as you like. Don't hold back." Edward really didn't hold back at all. His cool fingertips wandered endlessly over my skin. First, it felt like nothing, just a free massage. But then, Edward's fingers brushed against my pink bud. It was like being electrocuted. My scalp tingled, goosebumps rose all over, and something down below started to stir. I glanced at Edward, wondering how to make him stop. But when I saw his soft, pink lips, despair filled me. My obedient little brother suddenly wouldn't listen to me. He was standing up. Panicked, I said, "Young master." But before I could finish, Edward interrupted. "Jason, teach me martial arts." I froze. What? He had so many bodyguards, why did he want to learn martial arts? And even if I wanted to teach, I didn't know any. I shook my head. "Young master, I don't know martial arts." He smiled. "No, you do." Then he pulled himself out of my arms, stepped a few meters away, and ran toward me. Before reaching me, he dropped to his knees with a thud and slid across the floor, his face ending up pressed against my crotch. "Oh!" I looked down, just in time to see Edward raising his head to look at me. That position was extremely awkward. Not to mention, with my little brother fully awake, my brain was flooded with indecent images. Edward said, "Like this. Like this?" What did he mean? Attacking the crotch? Face sliding? Or did martial arts mean something entirely different in his mind? Seeing my confusion, he realized I hadn't understood. So he went back across the room and did it again. This time, he didn't shove his face into my pants, but his knees hit the hardwood floor with a loud bang. I could feel the pain just watching. I tried to stop him, but he dodged. Watching him slide back and forth across the floor, I was speechless. So what he called martial arts was just sliding tackles? I had only managed to catch him earlier by pure dumb luck. An hour later, Edward finally calmed down. But then he suddenly leaned closer to me. As his face drew nearer, I grew nervous. I didn't even dare breathe. When there was less than a centimeter between us, he stopped, leaned close to my ear, and whispered, "Jason, do you also know lightness skill?" I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "My young master, I'm just an ordinary man. How could I possibly know lightness skill?" Even if I wanted to, Newton wouldn't allow it. Edward said, I can pay tuition. Don't be stingy. Hiding things isn't your style. The issue wasn't whether I was hiding it. The issue was that I didn't know at all. I couldn't even fake it. But Edward was as stubborn as a mule, unwilling to let it go. Unable to fend him off, I changed the subject. Young master, I really want a drink right now. How about I drink with you? At once, he fell silent. After thinking for a while, he finally nodded. All right. After I downed a whole bottle of red wine, Edward was still gloomy, so I decided to cheer him up. Young master, you're so outstanding. If she doesn't want you, it's her loss. As the saying goes, when the old leaves, the new comes. Someone better is rushing toward you. Maybe you'll even wake up tomorrow with her in your arms. So don't be sad. Eat, drink, and when the sun rises, it'll be another energetic day. Come, young master, let's drink to a better tomorrow. After 3 rounds of drinks, I was a little tipsy, my head dizzy. Slurring, I asked, Young master, why did you suddenly want to learn martial arts? Leaning against my shoulder, Edward smiled at me. His eyes so tender they seemed to drip honey. Because I want to protect the person I like. Before he said that, I had almost thought he liked me. Turns out, he just wanted to protect the one he loved. I couldn't help wondering, what kind of girl had captured Edward's heart so much that, even after heartbreak, he still wanted to protect her? But one thing was certain. She must be beautiful and extraordinary. Edward kept talking and talking. My gaze involuntarily fell on his rosy lips. I swallowed hard and licked my own lips. After drinking so much, why did I feel even thirstier? That night I dreamed. In the dream, Edward's red lips moved constantly as he kept speaking. Entranced, I couldn't help but lean in and kiss him. In the dream, Edward didn't push me away. Instead, he grabbed the back of my head and took control. From the sofa to the bed, from the bed to the bathroom, and back again, we didn't stop. When I woke up the next morning, Edward was still lying beside me. I carefully lifted the blanket. His bare, pale back came into view. Further down. Oh my God! Even his underwear was gone. Frightened, I quickly pulled the blanket back over him. So, the dream hadn't ended? I thought since it was just a dream, maybe I could. Grinning wickedly, I slipped my hand under the blanket and gave a squeeze. Behave, don't mess around. Saying this, he grabbed me back. Too hard, in fact. It hurt. Just as I was about to yelp, I realized something was wrong. I pinched my thigh hard. The sharp pain made me realize it wasn't a dream. I looked at Edward, still fast asleep. Crap. I seemed to have gotten myself into trouble. Scrambling out of bed, I fled to my own room, my heart pounding wildly. What exactly had happened last night? I felt my butt. It didn't hurt. Did that mean we had just slept together without doing anything? I nodded firmly to myself. Yes, that must be it. But when Edward woke up, he asked, Did something happen last night? On the surface, I remained calm, but inside I was panicking. Did he remember everything? Luckily, he said, I can't recall. I smiled. Nothing happened. After I brought you back to your room, I went to sleep right away. He frowned. Did I fall somewhere last night? Are you feeling unwell? He rubbed his butt. My butt hurts a little. Panic surged. Where exactly does it hurt? His face flushed. My chrysanthemum. I was horrified. Did I actually? No wonder I didn't feel anything. So, I was the top. Forcing a stiff smile, I said, Maybe you accidentally sat on a wine bottle? As soon as Edward went to work, I immediately packed up my things and ran away. On the way home, no matter how hard I thought about it, I couldn't figure out how things had turned out like this. If Edward had been the one on top last night, it wouldn't have been that big a deal. I was a rough guy, thick-skinned, so it didn't matter. But he was different. He liked a girl. If he found out what had happened last night, would he feel disgusted? Would he be so angry he'd want to kill me? As the saying goes, as long as the green hills remain, there will always be firewood. If I didn't run now, when would I? When my mom opened the door and saw me dragging a big suitcase, She was stunned for a moment. "Baby, why are you back?" I smiled. "I missed you, so I came back." Obviously, Mom didn't believe me. After all, I had just come home last weekend. But since I had come home, she was still very happy, didn't ask too many questions, and cooked me a big meal. That night after dinner, I watched Warm Spring with Mom. She cried buckets because of the touching scenes in the drama, while I cried buckets because I regretted everything. Why had I run home so impulsively? Edward hadn't even noticed anything, but the moment I ran away, he was bound to get suspicious. If he connected my sudden escape with his sore chrysanthemum, wouldn't that be the same as confessing? Digging my own grave? I clutched my head in agony. And of course, the thing I feared most came true. Edward called. To make work easier, I had set a special ringtone just for him. Now, just hearing it made my scalp go numb. I hesitated, wondering if I should answer. Mom glanced at me. "It's your boss. Why aren't you picking up?" How was I supposed to tell my mom that I had slept with Edward? Under her constant urging, I finally answered. "Hello, young master. Where are you?" Edward's voice sounded urgent. "I went back to my hometown. Did you need something?" I heard him let out a long sigh of relief. After a while, he asked, "Why did you suddenly go home? Did something happen? Do you need my help?" "No, nothing happened. I just missed my mom." "When will you come back to work?" "In a few days." I couldn't bring myself to say I wanted to resign. After all, it was too good a job to find anywhere else. Edward didn't say much more. "Send my regards to Auntie for me." My mom, always the warm-hearted type, lit up the moment she heard Edward greeting her. "Come visit sometime." Edward replied gently, "Of course, Auntie. I'll come when I have time." "Good, good. I'll make you something delicious." "Thank you, Auntie. It's getting late, you should rest early." It was the first time I'd ever heard Edward speak to a stranger with such gentleness. The next morning, Mom woke me up early. She said Grandpa from next door had a broken water pipe and asked me to help fix it. After repairing it, I returned home and saw someone sitting on the sofa. I thought it was just a visitor, so I went over to greet them. But when I saw his face clearly, the wrench slipped from my hand. Wearing slippers, I got hit square on the foot by the falling wrench. The pain was so sharp I couldn't hold it in. I let out a pig-like scream. "Ah!" Edward's previously indifferent face changed instantly. He jumped up, scooped me into his arms, and rushed outside. My mom, who had just returned from grocery shopping, saw Edward carrying me and quickly said, "Put him down. I'll take him to the hospital." But I clung desperately to the doorframe. "No need, I'm fine. Go. No. Go. No." After a round of back and forth, I was completely defeated. Mom asked what we were doing. I stammered, "Nothing." Edward looked worried. He just got his foot smashed. I was afraid it might be a fracture. Mom's face instantly darkened. She smacked me on the head. "We're going to the hospital." At the hospital, the doctor said, "No bones are broken. Just apply some spray medicine." Mom finally let out a sigh of relief. "That's good, that's good." Then she turned to me with anger. "How can you be so careless?" I grinned sheepishly. "Sorry, Mom. It won't happen again." By chance, I caught sight of Edward at the doorway, also letting out a sigh of relief. Was he worried about me? On the way home, Edward didn't say a word. Afraid he'd be bored, I tried to start a conversation. "Young master, what brings you to Lynn City?" "To clear my head." Looks like that girl had really broken his heart badly. I nodded. "When will you go back?" He looked at me. "What about you?" I didn't expect him to ask back. I froze for a few seconds. "In a while. Since I'm here, I want to spend more time with my mom." I still didn't have the courage to face Edward. I was afraid I'd slip up. Without hesitation, Edward said, "Then I'll stay a while too. Your hometown is nice. Good for clearing my mind." I was dumbfounded. "Huh? What, am I not welcome?" I wanted to cry but had no tears. "Of course not. You're welcome." Hearing that Edward planned to stay, Mom was overjoyed. She held his hand and said, "Let Jason show you around these days. Auntie will make sure you eat well." Edward responded politely, "Thank you, Auntie." That night, my face wrinkled like a bitter melon. Because our house had only 2 bedrooms, Mom arranged for Edward to stay in my room. Quickly said, "No need. I can sleep on the sofa." Edward also said, "I'll sleep on the sofa." But Mom cut us off. "No, listen to me. You two sleep in Jason's room. His bed is big enough for both of you." Then she shoved us into the bedroom. "Edward, if you need anything, just tell Jason. I'm gonna play mahjong for a while." Edward smiled. "Thank you, Auntie. I'll take care of myself. Don't stay up too late." I swear, I didn't mean to see Edward naked. It really was an accident. After Mom left, Edward asked me, "Do you have any extra pajamas? I want to shower." I quickly found one of my least worn sets and kindly let him use my bathroom. Trying to make him more comfortable, I said, "I'll go watch TV outside." 10 minutes later, I suddenly remembered there was a book on my nightstand. Panicked, I rushed back to the bedroom. But just as I opened the door, I ran into Edward, who had just stepped out of the shower, completely naked. His perfect chest, sculpted abs, sexy V-line, and my eyes widened, fixed on that certain spot. It looked bigger than mine. Our eyes met. My face flushed bright red, and I turned away. "Why you? Why aren't you wearing clothes?" "I forgot to bring them in. I'll put them on now." Wait, why did his voice sound so happy? After he got dressed, Edward said he was going for a drink of water. Once he left, I rushed to the nightstand and grabbed the book. On the open page, there weren't any math problems. Instead, 2 men were tangled together in an uncensored scene. But wait, I remembered reading a different page yesterday. Could I have been too sleepy and mistaken? There's no way Edward looked at it, right? No. I'd rather believe I was mistaken. After all, everyone was an adult. Looking at red and green stuff wasn't strange. But the problem was the protagonists of this comic were 2 men. Yes, I liked men. I realized I liked men back in middle school. One day, I accidentally stumbled upon a very tame manga about 2 guys falling in love. I was fascinated, reading eagerly, while my friends all said it was disgusting. That was when I realized I was different from them. At first, I hadn't planned to hide it. But then I overheard someone saying gay people were disgusting. After that, I completely disguised myself. Even Mom didn't know that I liked men. If Edward ever saw this manga, he'd definitely think I was a pervert. Before Edward came back, I quickly stuffed the manga under my bed. After I finished blow-drying my hair, he returned. He glanced at me and asked, "Can we sleep now?" I nodded. Sure." To be honest, aside from that drunken night, this was the first time in my life I had ever shared a bed with someone. Even though the bed was big, I wasn't straight. Inevitably, my mind wandered. Trying to give him space, I scooted so far over I nearly fell off. Edward's quick reflexes saved me. He grabbed me just in time. By the time I realized it, I was in his arms. His hot breath brushed against my face, sending shivers through me. Crap, I was reacting again. Afraid he'd notice, I quickly turned my back on him. "Go to sleep. It's late." That night I dreamed again. In the dream, Edward was naked, and I grinned wickedly as I pressed him beneath me. But the look in his eyes was filled with disgust and loathing. I woke up in fright, drenched in sweat. Edward stirred from the noise. He touched my back. "You're sweating so much. Did you have a nightmare?" The memory of his disgusted gaze in the dream made me panic. I shoved his hand away. "No, just hot. I'll go wash up." Edward ended up staying at my house for an entire week. I couldn't tell if it was my imagination, but I felt like he was deliberately teasing me. At meals, Edward always brushed his leg against mine. The first time, I thought it was an accident. But when he did it again the next day, I moved away. Soon enough, he brushed against me again. That day was particularly hot. Even in shorts, I felt warm. Unable to stand it, I asked Mom to make mung bean soup. But when I took a sip, cough, 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 Edward leaned over and gently patted my back. "Drink slowly. No one's stealing it from you." Mom chimed in, "Exactly." I made plenty, enough for the whole day. Catching my breath, I glanced down. Edward's hand rested on my thigh, his fingertips stroking lightly. Was this really unintentional? I found myself losing control more and more. Just a light touch from Edward, and I reacted instantly. My little brother woke up in record time. Seeing the tent rising in my pants, I panicked, jumped up, and bolted into the bathroom. 10 minutes later, I emerged. Mom asked, "Upset stomach?" But that can't be. Those mung beans were fresh. I glanced at Edward, feeling guilty. My problem. In the afternoon, Edward and I watched TV with Mom. But the more I thought about it, the more confused I became. What exactly did Edward mean? Could it be that he liked men too? Suddenly, Edward grabbed my hand resting on the sofa. Acting like nothing happened, he just smiled at me. My heart pounded wildly, as if it were about to leap out of my chest. I stared at Edward. I had to admit he was really good looking. Then it hit me. It wasn't that I couldn't control my body. It was that I liked Edward. Because I liked him, I couldn't control myself. Before bed, Edward said, "There's something important I need to take care of tomorrow afternoon. Do you want to come back with me?" I nodded. Yes. The next morning, when Mom learned we were leaving, she insisted on buying us things to take along. No way to stop her. After shopping, while Mom and I packed, Edward was in the room organizing luggage. When I returned, Edward was helping me pack my things. In his hand was something white. Looking closely, damn it, wasn't that the underwear I had bought but never worn? The one with so little fabric that wearing it felt shameful? I had tried it once and then stuffed it in the closet. Where had he found it? I had heard that straight men usually found such things disgusting. Panicking, I lunged forward to snatch it. "Young master, I'll take care of that myself." But he dodged. "No worries. I'll handle it. You go keep Auntie company." Then he calmly folded the underwear and put it into my suitcase. Looking at his face, there didn't seem to be any disgust at all. He wasn't repulsed? I touched my burning cheeks. Could it be Edward liked men too? The next morning, when leaving, Edward told me he'd be back early for dinner. I was secretly a little happy. But at 4 p.m., as I passed through the living room, I overheard the cleaning lady talking with someone. The Edward family had arranged a blind date for him and he'd gone to meet her. I froze. So that important matter he mentioned was a blind date? I had thought it was about work. Then Edward messaged me, "Bring a women's jacket over." He included a size and an address. Looking at the address, it was a high-end restaurant. So he really was on a blind date. Seeing the gloomy sky outside, I suddenly felt depressed. Carrying the jacket over, I saw two people talking and laughing from a distance. The woman had bright red lips and wavy hair, exuding confidence and flair. Edward, handsome, elegant, wealthy. I didn't know what they were talking about, but the woman was laughing so hard she had tears in her eyes. Edward gently handed her a napkin. Honestly, they looked perfect together. Talented man, beautiful woman. As I drew closer, I heard Edward confessing. He said, "I like you." Felt like a thunderbolt hit me. My head buzzed. The woman asked excitedly, "Really?" Edward smiled and nodded. I can't wait another moment. So they were confessing and making it official? I took a deep breath, suppressed the bitterness in my chest, and walked over. "Young master, here's the coat you asked for. I'll head back now." Ignoring Edward's stunned look, I turned and left. On the way back, I passed a supermarket. On impulse, I went in and bought a lot of beer. The next morning, I woke up to find someone lying beside me. I thought, could it be Edward again? Cautiously, I peeked. Oh my God. It really was him. So what happened last night? No matter how hard I thought, I couldn't remember. I looked at Edward, still asleep. Forget it. Better escape while I could. Quietly, I slipped out of bed, picked up my clothes from the floor, and got dressed piece by piece. When I tiptoed to the door and reached for the knob, a cold voice came from behind me. "Where are you going?" I stiffened. Slowly turning, I locked eyes with Edward, now awake. Why was he up? My whole body went numb. Expressionless, he stared at me. I gave an awkward laugh. Heh, heh, gee, good morning, young master. His gaze swept up and down, finally landing on my hand gripping the doorknob. Where are you going? Where else could I go? Back to my own room, obviously. I forced a laugh. Just heading back to my room. He frowned. Don't you plan to address what happened last night? Did that mean I really had slept with him again? Judging by Edward's reaction, it was definitely more than just sleeping side by side. I stammered, you don't mean to tell me you forgot what happened? Sharp as ever. Yes, I didn't remember. But could I admit that? One glance at Edward's darkening expression told me. Absolutely not. Could I say I liked him instead? No, I couldn't. He liked women. He would marry a woman. I liked men. Besides, he was the young master and I was just his butler. Even if he did like men, our backgrounds were worlds apart. Impossible. Forcing a pained smile, I said, Young master, we're both adults. So we slept together, no big deal. You don't actually expect me to take responsibility, do you? It was just one night. Not worth making a fuss over. Clearly, Edward was furious. I snickered. Or, if you insist, I can let you sleep with me again. Climbing back on the bed, I straddled him and began unbuttoning my shirt. Come on, young master. Let's get it over with. Edward shoved me off, his chest rising and falling rapidly. After a long pause, he said, Leave. I blinked. Not sleeping anymore? He shouted, Get out. Edward approved my resignation almost immediately. When I left, he gave me a lot of things, from clothes to toothbrushes. While packing, he said, These were meant for you. I can't give them to anyone else. Take them or throw them away. No use leaving them here. Since he'd already spent money, I couldn't bear to waste it. So I hired movers to take everything. Before I left, Edward asked, Do you have somewhere to stay? If not, I'll help arrange it. I smiled. I have an apartment. No need. In fact, I owed Edward thanks. If not for his generosity, I could never have bought an apartment in Sun City. I had purchased it a year ago and already had it decorated. But since Mom didn't want to leave Lynn City, and I had been living in Edward's house, the apartment had sat empty. After cleaning, I put away Edward's things. The more I packed, the sadder I became. So I went downstairs to the supermarket and bought alcohol. After drinking too much, I called Edward randomly, crying and cursing. When I woke up, Edward was in my house. He served me porridge. Drink while it's hot. Panicked, I asked, Did I call you? He nodded. Maybe to ease my embarrassment, he drank porridge with me. I grew nervous. I didn't say anything crazy, did I? He set down the bowl. You said you liked me very much. I nearly choked, sucking in a sharp breath. Cough, cough, cough. I choked on the porridge, unable to breathe. Edward rubbed my back and continued. You also cursed me for being arrogant and bad-tempered. Said you wanted to slap me to death. Called me a bastard and said you should have fired me the first chance you had. Mortified, I covered my face. Please stop. But he went on. You also said, fearing he'd reveal something even worse. I clamped a hand over his mouth. Don't. Please stop. He grabbed my wrist, pressed it against his face, and gazed at me with eyes so tender they seemed to melt. I like you too. I shook my head in disbelief. Don't lie to me. I'm not lying, he said urgently. I heard you confessing to that girl. He chuckled. So you did hear. Then he nodded. Yes, I said it. My heart sank. And yet you say you like me. But did you hear what I said before that? I shook my head. Just hearing those 3 words, I like you, nearly killed me. If I'd listened longer, it would have finished me off. What I said was, today I must tell Jason I like him. I was stunned. So you weren't confessing to her? He shook his head. No. My parents don't know I like you, so they arranged the blind date. Out of respect, I went. But I told her straight away. We laughed because I mentioned you. She laughed because she's a fujoshi. She likes stories of 2 handsome men in love. I pouted. But you asked me to bring her a jacket. He looked apologetic. That was my fault. She said she was cold, so I messaged my secretary, Wendy. But I accidentally sent it to you. Ah, no wonder Edward had looked so surprised when I showed up. He'd sent it to the wrong person. I hated myself for not asking him directly at the time. But luckily we hadn't missed our chance. I pulled Edward into a kiss. Finally, I could eat meat. I was overjoyed. But an hour later, my smile faded. I wasn't on top. That bastard Edward had tricked me. That night, nothing had actually happened. I had been terrified for so long, all for nothing. Edward, flustered, apologized. Jason, please don't be mad. I lost my mind at the time and thought if I lied, you'd feel guilty and pay more attention to me. But I didn't expect to scare you away. When I went to find you, I saw your manga and realized you liked men. That's when I started teasing you. But my feelings are real. If I'm lying, may I be struck. I clapped a hand over his mouth. What nonsense are you saying? So I hadn't been mistaken. He really had gone through my manga. Smirking wickedly, I said, if you feel guilty, then let's make a deal. What is it? I want to be on top. He nodded. All right, I gasped. You agree? He smiled. It's nothing. I was thrilled, kissed him and said, you're the best. But 3 hours later, my smile vanished again. Turns out, his idea of on top wasn't the same as mine. Forget it. Top or not didn't matter. Happiness was all that counted. On our third day as a couple, I took him to meet my mom. On the way back, I was so nervous I could hardly breathe. I asked Edward, what if my mom doesn't accept it? Edward squeezed my hand. She will. At the door, I spent ages psyching myself up. Just as I was about to knock, Mom opened it. You're back again? Why stand outside? I thought if I didn't say it now, I never would. Mom, actually, I like men. I thought Mom would collapse. But to my shock, she barely reacted. Confused, I asked, Mom, aren't you surprised? She smiled. Surprised about what? I gave birth to you, raised you. Of course I know. I was stunned. When did you find out? You silly boy. You couldn't even hide your manga properly. I suddenly remembered, when I first brought one home, I hadn't hidden it well enough, and Mom saw it. She had asked me what it was. I had pretended. I don't know. My deskmate gave it to me to hold. I thought I had fooled her. Turns out she had known all along. The saying was right. No one knows a son better than his mother. Few parents were as open-minded as mine. I hugged her tightly. I love you, Mom. Back in the room, Edward and I were being intimate when he suddenly paused. I blinked. What's wrong? He got up and rummaged through my suitcase. Leaning on the bed, I asked, what are you looking for? When I saw what he held, my face turned scarlet. He said, put this on. I want to see. It was the sheer, skimpy underwear. I shook my head furiously. No way. He kissed the corner of my lips. Please. In the end, I gave in. The result was, he cooked me until I passed out several times. Later, he went even further, insisting we try the poses from my manga. Those high-difficulty positions nearly killed me. And I was right. I ended up stuck in bed for days. That afternoon, my cousin came over. She said, you left in such a hurry that day. You forgot your tie clip. Suddenly, she froze, staring at something behind me. Turning around, I saw Edward standing at the bedroom door, his face dark. Before I could say anything, he walked inside and slammed the door shut. My cousin looked baffled. What's wrong with your friend? I shook my head. No idea. After she left, I returned to the bedroom. Edward was curled up on the bed, looking pitiful. I wrapped my arms around him. What's wrong? He ignored me, so I forced him to face me. Seeing his red eyes, I froze. You're crying. It wasn't the first time I'd seen Edward cry, but maybe because our relationship had changed, so had my feelings. My heart ached sharply. After a long silence, he asked, who was that girl just now? I thought for a moment. The only girl I'd just seen was my cousin. You mean the one in the pink dress? He nodded. She's my cousin. My uncle's daughter. Judging by his reaction, he must have misunderstood. When I asked further, I learned that the day I took my cousin to the hotel to check in, Edward had been in the cafe across the street on business. He had seen us. That was when it hit me. So your heartbreak was because of me? You thought we were going to a hotel together? He nodded. Yes. In truth, I had always felt a little uneasy knowing Edward liked someone else. But I never said anything, not wanting to seem petty. Now, hearing this, all my unease vanished in an instant. I was ecstatic. I hugged him tightly. So you wanted to learn martial arts because of me too? He smiled. Yes. I thought for a moment, then asked, then why didn't you confess? I wanted to, but I was afraid you didn't like men. If you found out, you'd hate me and avoid me. So I didn't dare. I never expected that you'd get drunk and kiss me. I was horrified. I kissed you? When? That night we drank together. You asked why I wanted to learn martial arts, and I said I wanted to protect the person I liked. Then you kissed me. So none of it had been a dream. Even now wasn't a dream. I really had a boyfriend. I lunged forward, kissed him hard, and looked at him with eager eyes. Unexpectedly, he refused. My world collapsed. What, are you already sick of me? He burst out laughing. No. Then why not? You still haven't explained why your cousin had your tie clip. Though his face was expressionless, his tone made it obvious he was jealous. Extremely jealous. I laughed. Are you jealous? He didn't deny it. He nodded. Yes. Someone who didn't care about me wouldn't be jealous. She thought my tie clip looked nice and wanted to buy one for her boyfriend, so she borrowed it to take a picture. I left in a rush and forgot it. At once he relaxed. I kissed him again, and he quickly lost himself in me. I whispered, Baby, can I be on top tonight? He nodded. Yes. I hurried to clarify. I don't mean, you know. But before I could finish, he swallowed all my words with a kiss. Once again, I failed to top,